It is 7 o'clock, so we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. I want to thank everyone for joining us on Zoom tonight, and I think we all appreciate being able to do this remotely. So not only are the kids doing remote today, so are we. So thank you for joining us. Do we have any public comments?
Nope.
All right, then we're going to move on to Dave Keating to share with us our building capital projects and so forth.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Dave.
Okay, I'm at here. All right. First, we can start off with some good news. Well, it's all good news, I guess. But we have an update on our solar project. All the alternates were approved, so all the architectural, structural drawings will be able to avoid all the structural work at the other two, at Andrew and Sandberg for the roofs. And a few of the other alternates were accepted, saving us about $334,652. And we're still in the process of looking into the leasing option. They have still working on investors and all that for that, but at least we're down most of that money that we were hoping to get down. Looks like we're down to that point for relocating some of the equipment to the roof and all the structural steel we don't have to do.
Great, that's wonderful.
Excellent news.
Okay, for the other projects, it kind of stands still with the weather, of course, as you can tell. Varsity baseball fields, there's not much going on there. The roofing phases, I'm looking forward to getting started on that since we have all this snow melting and finding more leaks up in areas where we're going to be replacing. So we have new projects coming out, but still don't have official numbers yet to put in here. But some 2021 alterations is going to be called the package. And we are going to be doing doors and windows and a few other different projects in the schools. I'll have more details and exact numbers for the next building and finance meeting. The pool filter renovations, we have the drawings complete for that. They're going to the IDPH to get our permitting before we go out to bid with that, because last time we went out to bid hoping to get the permits quicker and it took a long time. So we're hoping to have that in hand before we start our bidding process. Let's see, the elevators still, they're ordering their equipment. We're waiting to see that to come in soon, and then they'll be starting that in June. We had our bid opening for the water main replacement for the Westfields at Sandberg. I'm going over that, I believe, a little later on my list here. And the ACM removal, yeah, they'll start as soon as the school's out. Anybody have any questions on future or current projects? Okay.
Then we can go ahead and move on to the next item.
Sure. The electric curtailment report. Every summer we haven't had to curtail yet, but we do a test. We did this the last previous years. This is the updates from our last year. It was on June 24th last year. We could tell you where we hit on our numbers. We don't get as much money back as right now because ComEd's now doing it in two separate waves. They're saying a winter and summer. So they're calling for curtailment for both. But we don't have to participate in both, but we have to sign up for both. But currently we haven't been told to do anything for winter, and that's from last summer's curtailment. So
Yeah, Dave, maybe, I don't know if the entire group's familiar with the curtailment program, maybe just a general overview of what the program entails, that it's voluntary, that not everyone participates, but we've done it for a number of years.
Yeah, that's correct, John. So yeah, it's a volunteer program set up through ComEd. So when the areas for calling for a high electric current, usually it's higher in the summertime with everyone air conditioning on the really hot days. And if we're able to, it's usually an hour or two, we were able to shut down most of our equipment and our lighting to save money for ComEd, not to have the spike in the areas of where our schools are at. And in turn, they give us money on what we saved if we get close to the kilowatts they're asking.
Yep.
Do we know what month they were thinking about doing in the winter, or we have no information?
I don't have any information. They send me monthly tests, and I respond to our tests saying we're getting them, but they don't give us really any warning. It's just when they see the dip coming. I had a few cold weather alerts, but no curtailments been required yet.
Okay,
And if it comes to a point where we're going to have equipment freeze up, I can't shut down major equipment. So if we're able to do it, I definitely will be doing it, but I'm going to play that by ear. The winter kind of makes me more nervous than the summertime. So
Great.
understandable.
Yep. Yep. Dave, does do we set the target kilowatts or does ComEd do that?
ComEd does.
Okay.
And then also, like, even in the summer, we're allowed to keep certain spaces operating, correct? With the air?
Correct. A lot of times we've had it in the past where it's been later in the afternoon. So our buildings
Right.
kind of hold cold pretty good. So we're able to shut off the equipment, let's say at 2 o'clock for an hour and a half. And then by the time that everyone's out of there, it still works out pretty well for us.
Yeah. Winter's a little different, I know.
Correct. Yeah. We haven't had to do it yet. This will be the first year. So I'm a little,
And think about it, spring officially is in March, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
officially.
Yeah.
so we may not have anything to do with it this year. So it may, if we haven't had it yet with this last stretch we had, we may not get it.
Thank you.
It'll also be interesting when we do it in the summer. It'll be the first summer that we're full LED compliant, right? So we should see some savings there.
Yes, I hope to see definite savings in our LEDs this summer. Yes.
All right, any other questions about the curtailment? Then Dave, do you want to tell us about the water main bid?
Yes. Wednesday, February 11th at 1 p.m., we received the bids for the 2021 Sandburg Athletic Field water replacement project. The work includes the installation of it's actually 4-inch pipe. We found out I don't know why it's typo here, but the 4-inch HDPE, we found out that through the contractor saying it was cheaper to do 4-inch because 3-inch is more of a niche, I guess you could say. They don't make as much of it, so it's cheaper to buy the 4-inch. So there was an addendum in our contract or in our bid specs for that to be switched to 4-inch. The water main is from the auto body shop, cold water feed out to the South Athletic Field irrigation backflow preventer, which is out by the ground shack. And this line was installed in 1978, and we've had at least 5 times in the past 3 years we've had to dig this up and fix the leaks that were out there in the parking lot. The original water main was made out of ductile iron. The new water line is made out of that's a heavy duty plastic feeder. They're just going to pull that in with directional boring. We sent 5 contractors the bid documents. We received 4 bids. The bids for this work range from $95,995 to $129,885. We estimated the work would cost around $7,500, so it came in higher than we thought. The work will be done between March 1st and April 15th, depending on the weather. The architects are currently going over the bids with the lowest bidder, and we're going to have a recommendation for this month's board meeting.
Dave, any reason why we underestimated by $20,000?
Well, what part of 10,000 of it's the contingency money for it, just in case we run into problems.
Okay.
But originally I had a contractor come out and give me a price to replace this. And he came in around 65,000. And the same contractor bid the job. So I called and asked him why the difference, because that's what I originally got my estimate from. And he says he misunderestimated the work coming into the school. And he says he's almost glad he didn't get the job back then because he would have lost a lot of money. So he underbid it the first time, I guess you could say. And then he also had it only of us going down 2 feet and we had 6 feet down. So that's more of a shoring and spoil removals. So that was in a nutshell what he told me. It was mostly because of the money he anticipated was wrong originally. So.
All right. So his depth was incorrect.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good. That's good to know that we had someone else come out earlier.
Yeah, they were the second lowest. Currently, the lowest bidder is not them. They were $2,000 higher than our lowest bidder.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
And again, for the background of the group, if it's over $50,000, then we have to bid it, go through an official bid, but otherwise we can just seek quotes. And I think that's why you go out initially to a contractor and ask, how much is this going to cost? Because you got to determine whether it needs to be bid or not. So that's why we're getting those prices up front like that.
Thanks, John. Yes, that's correct.
All right, any other questions regarding this bid? Then we will move on to the technology update since there is no maintenance or cleaning report. So John Conley, would you like to share with us any technology updates?
Yeah, that would be great. I actually just took control of the screen. Can you guys see my screen by chance?
Yes.
Yes.
We can, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, it's good to be here. My name is John Conley. I'm the Chief Technology Officer. I've been here before, but I thought I'd just introduce myself again. So first up, guys, is our wireless RFPs. So we have over 700 access points throughout our buildings. We use a system called AeroHive over the last 7 years. So 7 years ago, when we put the access points in place, we had a shelf life of 5 years. We were able to get 2 extra years out of those access points, which was great. And now we're coming up to where we need to update them. So the good thing is the cabling we put in 7 years ago, we got the best rated cabling, if you will, as far as throughput. So it's really just kind of a hardware replacement where we just go to an existing access point and switch it out with a new access point. So we ran an RFP. We had 11 manufacturers and resellers submit proposals. We narrowed it down to 4 finalists. We had a round of finalists. Then we went down to 2. And a lot of that helps us just make sure that we're looking at every possible option, and also for negotiating. It helps when you kind of are multiple times with negotiating with them. But ultimately, the best solution that we ran across for our district was Juniper Mist, proposed by a reseller called Qubit. The total, we had budgeted $500,000. The total is $497,000. So we're under budget, but that also includes the 5 years of maintenance and software on like firmware upgrades on the hardware and the software that they have. That would be bundled into the package. The good news is that and some of you guys have heard me talk about the federal E-rate program. The federal E-rate program allows us to get a rebate on a purchase such as this, and it ends up being for our district 50%. So the true cost, even though we would pay $497,000 for our next budget year, the following year it'd be within the year we would receive half of that back. So the true cost to our district is going to be $248,687. So this is basically an RFP that will be going to as a recommendation to the board. Any questions on that?
John, what's the anticipated life on this?
So what we would do from a budgeting standpoint is we're going to target 5 years with the hope that we can get 6 to 7 more years. When asked that question, Juniper had said, yeah, we don't see a reason why you can't use these into year 6 and 7. It's going to more so come down to not the wear and tear on them. It's going to come down to the technology. So if there's a technology 6 or 7 years from now, we know the technology is going to be better, but is it that much better where we should make the change? And what you'll find with wireless devices is it all comes down to the laptops and all the devices that are connecting. So for example, this wireless we're getting now, what it can handle, only about 5% of our current devices even take advantage of that new technology. Now, 3 years in, 4 years in, you're going to see Chromebooks and laptops be able to handle that. But that would be the determining factor.
Okay. Thank you.
One thing that might be of interest to the group too is, so this particular wireless solution includes artificial intelligence, which is unlike other systems that we saw, which is great. But also, we're looking at covering our entire campus. We've had some exterior coverage just off of our buildings, but we're going to be working with Dave Keating to fully cover our campus, especially when you look at the spring and into next year with, COVID and coming out of COVID, having more alternate outdoors learning spaces. Of course, living in Chicago, it's always, even in the summer, you never know what you're going to get for weather, but we want to make sure that we have that capability. So it's something we might move on as soon as this spring.
Any other questions for John?
So that was on the wireless. I was going to go through just some update on this. Is a great committee for talking just kind of the security we have in place. And I think I was talking to John Lavelle. I think that was brought up a couple months ago when you guys were going over the insurance.
It was.
So I thought
I
it would hit up our security layers. And that's what a lot of security in any organization, it all comes down to the layers. So kind of looking at first layer, it's really kind of on the cloud side. We have 2 internet service providers. Both have DDoS protection. What happens is in a lot of high schools, a lot of students are gamers and they realize we can DDoS a network. And what that does is they basically advertise out an IP address for your network, and all of the infected computers from around the world all send traffic your way. So we've fended off quite a few DDoS attacks in the last few years, and all of that traffic comes from like Russia and overseas. So it's really interesting, but we have that protection in place. We have 2 internet service providers. So in the event that one goes down, we can always leverage another one. We also have the system called Imperva Traffic Management, which we leverage to block countries that would want to send us malicious information, but also masks a lot of our IP address for our systems. So that's kind of the first layer. As we go into the network, we have what's called a firewall, which basically kind of protects everything coming in and out. Wireless access point config. What we do with our wireless access points is we actually block traffic. If there's a BitTorrent or something one of our students are doing, it doesn't even get past our access points. It gets stopped there. And then we have very granular wireless access, and you'll hear that kind of tune on the wireless access. So the more granular you are, the better it is that people don't, if something malicious happens, they don't have access to a ton of stuff. When we look at our endpoints, which are basically laptops and the devices, we have a next generation antivirus that we just agreed to add in addition to the antivirus we have. We do not have admin rights on our laptops. So if a employee wanted to install software, they'd have to come through our tech department. And we've worked hand in hand with all of our departments to really get away from network drives. So all files are in Google Drive as opposed to a network drive. When you hear about ransomware hitting groups, a lot of times that'll be on your standard network drives, which we really don't have access to anymore as an organization. On the application tier, we have web filtering. We have 2-factor authentication on Google. We have for our Google Drive, we have security scans and backups. And then we have a lot of Gmail has a lot of built-in rules to block and capture information or emails that are malicious. But in addition to that, we started working with a cheap solution called Virtru, which allows for business services or HR, if they're sending something over that has sensitive data and information. So let's say it was a credit card for some reason, credit card number. Virtru basically encrypts it so that it's impossible to hack. Last kind of layer here is infrastructure. So we have multiple data centers. So if we were to lose our ad center, we have a secondary data center at Sandburg, so we can run, and it also replicates all of the data. So that's kind of the data backup procedures we have in place. And then very granular access levels. So there's only really 2 users in our entire district that have access to all of those levels, and they happen to be our biggest security folks. So those are kind of all the different layers we have in place. Number one thing, and a lot of those technical solutions help with it, but the number one threat to any organization is actually all of us, all the end users, just because even the best security folks can be tricked by scams, and ultimately if someone really wants to scam any of us, they can figure out a way to break that down. So we have something called KnowBe4 training, where on a monthly basis, all of our staff receive, and board members for your District 230 emails, you receive basically our own scams. So, and they've really gotten good. When we first started doing it, there's different levels you can go up to 5. We started with level 2 for our first few, but we're at level 5 now, which even some of the emails I get, I have to look at 3 times before I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Let me delete it. In addition to that, we've also added some features that allow, if we do see a scam, it can be flagged by a user. It'll come to us and we can rip it out of everyone's inbox. And so what you'll see a lot of times in K through 12, and this is a perfect time with the W-2 forms, someone might go in and say, create basically an account that looks exactly like, I'll use Dr. Gay as an example. It'll look exactly like Dr. Gay, and they'll send an email saying, please send me all the W-2 forms, or please send me the files with or social security numbers for these employees. And when people get the email, you see the superintendent's name, and it can be really tricky. But I business and HR and our folks that have access to that information, they have just been awesome with recognizing it and letting us know. So we've been fortunate with this training and all of these things in place. And ultimately, every organization would say this, even though all this stuff sounds great, a lot of what we say in the tech world is it's only a matter of time. So it's not if, but when. But I think we have all this in place, and that's the reason why we did up our insurance, just because of some of the threats and some of the districts that have been getting hit close to us. There's 2 districts that are very, very close to us geographically that ended up getting hit by ransomware, having to pay the ransomware, and then they still got hit again and had to shut down school for a couple of days. So this is big time, scary stuff in the education world. But I think we're pretty well prepared.
And John, I know you've done, we talked to this committee about phishing, you've done that for quite some time and trained us and all that. So I think you got a lot of us very on edge in a good way. Anytime something comes across our desk, I call you guys all the time and say, I'll get things, even though it looks like it's come from the state, like ISB. And I know it's not ISB. I know that person doesn't work for ISB. And it'll like say, we're doing a quick audit of the schools, who's in hybrid. Oh, by the way, send me your teachers' social security number so we can get them vaccinated. I'm like, what? That's not going to happen, but you're dealing with so much. So in this panics, for lack of a better word, in this pandemic, I know friends of mine have sent things saying, Jim, did you send? I'm like, no, I didn't send. I'm checking it. So I agree. Like you said, John, it's a matter of time, but I think we are on edge a little bit. And some of our schools, our neighboring schools, they got hit twice. They got hit hard. And it's a shame.
It is. So thanks, Dr. Gay, but it's been a journey together, and it's been great having the support of you and our leadership team and John and Julia for the business and HR. So any questions, thoughts?
I just wanted to share that I know that you've been doing these phishing exercises for a good number of years, and every year you report that we have gotten much better at our awareness of that and to contacting your department to ensure that it is real. So thank you for all of that.
Hey,
John,
John,
that Mrs. Dalton, if we mess up more than twice, we have to go to class with John Conley. So no one wants to go to class with John. We get called to the office. We're like, oh, God, with our little Chromebook, our Chromebook in our hand saying, I'm so sorry. So none of us want to be called to the office, including me.
I do want to share kind of a cool story with you guys because it directly affects the pricing and it's tied into this. But we were looking at on the endpoint, the next generation antivirus. So we're looking at a system called CrowdStrike, and it's what we're going to end up moving with. But as we were looking at that, I had sent out an email to my professional organization. So it's all the CTOs in Illinois are on an organization. And our district has become so well respected with our security and just technology in general. And actually, this sounds bad. It sounds like I'm bragging. I'm really not bragging because it's tied to dollars. But I sent out an email just saying, hey, is anyone using this? And that vendor ended up coming back to us a week later saying, hey, did your CTO send out something to this organization? Because I have like 10 districts contacting me, asking me about this and wanting to see it. And now we're interested in giving you guys a price break, not only for those districts coming to us, but if you have that much of an influence on districts, we definitely want you using our technology. So it was pretty cool to see. And it's not me, it's really my team. We have an awesome team that I work with for this and just applications that it's really become pretty cool. And it's saving money. Along those lines, I got to say one last thing, it's somewhat tied to technology, but John Lavelle is not one to brag about himself, so I'm going to brag for him. But if you guys remember coming out of this committee a few years ago, we did a 25-year budget.
Yep.
And so that was published in the IASBO magazine, and they recently reached out. I'm not sure if John, you already shared this with the group, but they reached out and said, can we republish this in an upcoming publication? So I just think it's cool that John, Bob, and I know Dave Keating was working with Bob on that an organization like this wants to republish something that these guys did. So I'll stop my share there, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. And that was a phenomenal plan, and it still is. And John, you can't take a few pats on the back for the IT and the respect that we get, because every year when we go to the school board convention and we go see some of the vendors, and as soon as you say you're from 230, their eyes light up. So we have a great reputation, and you're part of the reason for that. And I think you should take some kudos for that.
Oh, thank you.
I agree with Tony on that, and I'd just like to say this is just another avenue where we see how our departments all work together to make sure that you're ensuring the best value for our students and our taxpayers. So we thank you very much for the security and working outside of the box and being front runners, because we are respected in this area, and we truly appreciate that, all the work your department and finance department. And again, this is a team effort. We have a lot of people giving input to making sure that we're getting what we need.
Great, thank you. So Tara, you can take over sharing controls if you want.
Did anyone have any questions for John? Otherwise, we'll move on then to John Lavelle, and we'll start discussing start by our treasurer's report for January.
John, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Thank
There
you.
go.
Thank you. Never done that before. That's okay. The treasurer's report is on the screen there at page 11 in the packet. The fund balance beginning of the month was $92,754,631. After revenues and expenditures for the month, we're at $85,490,227. And then the lower part of that chart shows fiscal year to date. We started the year with $100,852,000. We're ending this month of January with about $15 million less at $85,490,227. Moving on to the investments, or not the investments, the financial reports. Maybe go to page 13, Tara. Yeah, this one here, if you look at these half donuts at the top of the screen here, if you go down just a little bit, you'll see that actual expenditures for year to date in all funds is 53.99%. The projected year to date expenditures using our 5cast software that's looking back and averaging, I believe it's 3 years of data, would expect us to be at 57.76% at this time. So we're performing well on the expenditure side with lower expenditures than we were experiencing on average in the last several years. Going to the next slide, actually page 15. Yeah, this slide here. You can see that the top portion of that busy chart there shows the prior year's revenues, the current year's revenues, and then below that, the expenditures. So you can see year to date, at this time last year, we were at, again, 48.64% on the revenues. The current year is performing at 48.73%. And on the expenditure side, about 59% last year, about 54% this year. So things are tracking good on the budget. The rest of the slides go into more detail by fund if you want to zero in on those with the same year to date last year compared to this year data. And on page 24 then, we start our investments. We still do have some investments. The market's been pretty bad for finding anything better than a savings account. But we are still averaging on the majority of our funds. We have a 0.398% return with a 71-day average, weighted average portfolio to maturity. Beginning in February, I'll just mention we did begin that $15 million. It's a new series that Liquid Assets offering, so we'll see that on the next statement. And it promises a little bit better return. It's much like our managed portfolio in that as the market recovers and changes, and the yield curve changes, we can take advantage of that real time, even though we're tied into this investment for a year, where a CD would be quoted today at, I don't know, 0.1% or something. This is currently performing at 0.2%. And so double the value, and it's promises to take advantage of the market changes as they develop. So it seems like we're on the road to recovery here. So we may see some of those future longer term investments start to look a little bit better. And then the bond the next chart, I think on page 26, was, I think that's our bond proceeds. Yeah, this is our bond proceeds. Again, doing it about the same 3.84% with 156-day average yield to maturity, average portfolio to maturity. And then the next one, this is our long-term managed, or no, this is.
You're correct, John. It's the long-term managed care with Clearwater.
Yeah, and we got about $9,400 in return this last month. It's holding pretty well, doing well. We haven't haven't met with those guys. We're probably due to have a meeting with them to just review kind of the last 12 months. But yeah, there's some additional information. Since inception, it's done 3.961%. So I guess moving on to Fifth Third real quick, we've got 2.5 million there that is getting a decent return as well. So all right. That's it for the financials. Any questions on those?
Yeah, John, the state of Illinois funding still's on track.
Yeah, it seems like we're still on track with them. The federal money, you'll notice in those reports, did get a little bit of a surge this month. Tara shared that with me just before the meeting, that we did have a little pickup in some federal funds coming in. And we're studying a new federal source of revenue that could come out in the next 6 to 18 months, I think is the projection. Probably more like 12 to 18 months, but it's another area of Medicaid that the district would be eligible to apply for. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. Could mean a decent increase there, so several hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe $500,000 is the projection, I think. So, but yeah, the state's been pretty good so far. No hiccups with cash flow there yet. So,
Any other questions for John? Then we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the resolution authorizing the transfer of funds.
yes, right. At this coming board meeting, believe we talked about this last month, the transfer from transportation to the education fund of $500,000 to pay the first installment on our bonds. This was meant to cover the first interest payment. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm mixing this up with another transfer we're going to be talking about next month. No, this is from ed fund to from transportation to ed fund to cover deficit last year and balanced out our fund balance amounts. So we're just moving it between two operating funds, but they make you jump through all these hoops with a public hearing and so on and so forth. But it is allowed for in the school code.
Any questions on that? Okay, then we'll go ahead and we'll have our update on the state financing issues. Is that with Dr. Gay?
Yeah, yeah, there's very little. I mean, as you know, tomorrow the governor's going to give his budget address. We are anticipating a $3 billion deficit due to the graduate income tax amendment failure and unknown federal stimulus funds. So we're not expecting a very happy governor tomorrow. But he will be, we've been told educationally that evidence-based model money is not going to be affected, John. That's what we've been told, many meetings we've been to. So everyone's waiting for ESSER 2 to come out, which is more of a federal, but flows through. And it's been really quiet right now. The governor has been very quiet. Even our new Speaker of the House has been quiet. The omnibus bill has been thrown to a lot of committees. A lot of this doesn't affect this committee, but there are some graduation requirements looking at. There's extended year. Here's the thing that I don't want to, but if they ever do pass the extended year, that will affect this committee because that's going to be finances. If they extend, 20 years, oh my God, 20 days. I don't know what that does, John and Tony. I mean, you guys have been on those contracts. I would have to probably reopen the contract, right? The teacher's contract.
Yeah, definitely do some impact bargaining, I would imagine.
Yeah. Where that's going to go, I can't see that happening. But there are some graduation requirements, and they're looking at the change again in a different committee. Won't affect this committee, but the extended year would definitely affect here. But it's in.
Dr. Gay, if they extend the year,
Mhm.
is that also then extended for the seniors? I mean, in the past, they always get out a little earlier, but
Right.
would this require them to also go an extended period of time?
I can't see them being able to do it for this school year.
Okay,
But if it is next school year, the answer to that would be yes.
okay,
They would, I don't see, they wouldn't be, they, if they go to June 15th, they're not gonna let seniors out May 15th. Because they're gonna say minimum, they're gonna give you the extension of how many days, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna
okay.
say you need 200 days or 180, you know what I mean? They're gonna say that for all students. So no, I think it's a huge uphill battle though, Tony, on
Mhm.
that. Because we also have to deal, the CTU is definitely gonna have their
Oh,
opinions on it. I
Yeah.
think the CTU will have opinions on it.
oh, yeah, yeah, they will.
So I think that's just, I think there, I'm interested to see what the governor says tomorrow. He hasn't, the House and Senate is still virtual. I think they're trying to do some meetings here and there. I guarantee you the superintendents are very antsy not being able to be down there. Not that we
Mhm.
love Springfield, but we like to be down there in certain times of the year. So it's hard right now, Mrs. Dalton. There's not much to say.
You'll be reporting this back to us at our board meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll hear what you have to say from tomorrow's governor's speech, and please keep us informed as you always do.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I would say that we would go on to the transportation report, but as we all can see, it looks stellar. I don't think there's anything that we need to address there. And so that would just bring us down to, we had a couple second readings, I believe. Which we covered these already at our building and finance.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Right, so unless anybody had any comments on that, we did cover those already.
Yes.
Last meeting.
Right.
So we've gone through the agenda. Is there anything anybody wishes to share at this time?
Stay warm and get your snow out of your driveway. Feel like it's all I'm doing. I look back and there it is again. How's
Yep.
that?
There's no place to put it.
I know. Dave, how are we with our parking lots?
They're clean. Andrew's got a little more work to do. We had some equipment issues today, so and we probably have to find a way to move some of it to certain areas. So we'll see if we have to get some dump trucks in there to get rid of some of these areas that are blocking certain things. So as
You
of
can
right
move it
now,
to, you can move it to Sandburg High School, Dave. They have plenty of space.
yes.
Thanks, Dr. Tyrell.
And I
for
know
volunteering.
that would be coming.
But on a serious note, I think the principals will join me and John, if he's still out with this, how amazing the staff has been in keeping our buildings clean, warm, the parking lots, the driveways, the sidewalks, safety for our staff and students and people coming in, the entrance mats as they walk in. I've been around the buildings last week. I think the principals can join me in saying Dave, your crew's done a fantastic job.
They're the best. They're the best.
They're amazing.
Great work all the way around. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'll pass it along to everybody. It's nice to hear that.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks,
Well, I
Dave.
think then we are at the end of our meeting and we're going to go ahead and adjourn. I just want to remind everyone that our next meeting is scheduled for March 15th at 7 p.m. and we will notify you if that will be remote, hybrid, or in person. So we'll hopefully have less snow on the ground
Yeah.
and warmer temperatures. And we'll see you a month from now.
Good night, everybody.
Okay,
Good
take
night.
care.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a
for
good night.
being here.